Our next guest is an orthopaedic surgeon, and he's also in charge, or a spokesperson for a group entitled Stop the Australian Anti-Vaccination Network. John Cunningham, good afternoon.
And good afternoon to you too. How are you?
Good. Now, it's been reported, we don't know if this is true, but reported that the Anti-Vaccination Network was planning to meet en masse at the zoo this week, maybe on Friday, possibly on Saturday. Now, without asking you whether or not that's going to happen, if it did happen, if a whole lot of people and their children who were unvaccinated met in a public place like the zoo, could that potentially cause problems?
It'd possibly be one of the least responsible thing a parent of a child who's unvaccinated could do. Of course, responsibility doesn't usually rate too highly with these people, and that's why their children aren't vaccinated in the first place. You were talking before about United States and what we've learned from that. Well, last year there was an outbreak in Disneyland from a group of unvaccinated children going to Disneyland.
That's
there
right.
was an outbreak of measles.
Yeah, I remember that.
And it spread like wildfire. It's the correlation with a bushfire is very close. You get a whole lot of dry tinder together, being the unvaccinated children. You only need one spark to set off the bushfire. So if you get a group of unvaccinated children together, you only need one of them to have a disease, and they'll all get it. I feel sorry for any other group that might be going to the zoo at the same time.
That's what I was going to think. I feel sorry for unvaccinated children who get sick because it's not their decision; it's their silly parents' decision.
Absolutely.
But are vaccinated people at risk if a whole lot of unvaccinated people bring a disease into the zoo or anywhere else?
Well, there is always going to be a proportion of people that don't react to the vaccination, so they have the vaccination but they don't produce the antibodies. There's always going to be people who have immune deficiencies, such as children that have been on, or adults that have been on chemotherapy. These people are always walking around who think they're protected but aren't, and that's why you need something like a 95% vaccination rate to just keep these diseases out of the population completely, so we don't have to deal with them again.
And that is why it's not an individual decision, isn't it? Because we have this collective... I don't normally like collectivism, but we have a collective responsibility by keeping the vast majority of people vaccinated that it in fact stops the diseases entering the population in the first place.
It's the same reason we wear seatbelts. It's the same reason we stop at red lights. It's about just being a valued member of society. That's what it comes down to. And I feel sorry for the people who've been misled by the lies and misinformation spread by the anti-vaxxers. I mean, they need to go and talk to someone who's reputable to gain the information to refute the misinformation that they're being fed all these years.
Well, can I ask you about one of the biggest, examples of misinformation is that vaccination triggers autism in children. Now, I understand there was one discredited study which is seized upon by people, but is there any evidence that autism is brought on by vaccination?
There's not too many things in medicine that we can categorically say that there is no evidence, absolutely no evidence, that autism causes vaccination. There have been hundreds and thousands of children studied. Hundreds of millions of dollars has been spent to disprove this theory that was fraudulently put forward by a doctor who I won't even name because he's not even a doctor anymore. He did a study of only barely a dozen children, and fraudulently performed it. And we have spent years and millions of dollars refuting that. There is no connection between autism and vaccination, absolutely none. And I think the resources would be better spent actually finding out the causes of autism rather than wasting it on all this rubbish that people keep on putting out.
John Cunningham, thank you for your time. John Cunningham is a doctor, he's an orthopaedic surgeon, and he's also a spokesperson for the Stop the Australian Anti-Vaccination Network. So it's like a double negative. Just to be clear, he is pro-vaccination.